That's an easy question for me to answer because I can tell you the exact moment that I wanted to become an astronaut. My father was in the military, and we at that time lived in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, when Alan Shepard launched for his first flight in May of 1961. It was early in the morning, we were in our PE class, and back then our teacher had her transistor radio, and we were all crowded around her and listened to him talk with Mission Control. And I have no idea why, but at that moment I decided I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to go do that too. But I had no idea how to go about doing that. All the other astronauts at that point were male. They were all test pilots, and it didn't seem like a very realistic goal. And so as time went on and I decided to go into medicine, I started to think, well, maybe someday there'll be a space station and I can be a doctor on a space station. And then just found out very fortuitously from a friend that NASA was looking for people not only to be pilots, but to be mission specialists. Applied and was actually in the first group of women interviewed, along with Shannon and Ray. We were in the same interview group, which I thought was pretty astounding that 3 of the 6 of us were in the same interview group. So that was how I decided I wanted to become an astronaut. And years later, we were flying T-38s and we were on a flight up to Toronto, and we stopped to refuel in Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And it was just a really neat feeling to land at the same place where I remembered exactly where I wanted to become an astronaut.
Well, when I was a young girl, it was a long time before there was such a thing as a space program in either America or Russia or wherever. But I wanted to explore, and I wanted to grow up and explore, whatever hadn't been explored before. And then, as I read more books about, the different people that had been explorers and what had been explored, then I got real worried. I thought, you know what? By the time I grow up, there's not going to be anything left in this world. I mean, this was a real traumatic experience. But about the same time that I started reading science fiction, I found some science fiction books, and I was reading that, and it dawned on me. I thought, wow, I can grow up and be an explorer of space, because surely by the time I grow up, there'll still be someplace left to go that you can explore. Well, and so then that, sort of set in, and then building up, there was a lot of, and remember this was before the internet, of course, and you just had a few magazines that you could read, but there were a lot of talk about the United States, doing international studies about the Earth and the atmosphere, and they're going to have a rocket, and I read about, a rocket scientist out in New Mexico actually launched a rocket, and I thought, wow, that is so cool. And then when I was in the 10th grade, Sputnik launched, and that was sort of a paradigm changer. I mean, it was just an amazing thing. I can still remember standing outside the school building and thinking about the satellite that was going overhead and how this just changed everything for humanity is what I was thinking at the time. And so then, I thought, wow, this could be something. Maybe I can go up and explore space. Well, and I still remember the day that Time magazine came out with 7 astronauts on it, the original 7, and of course they were all male. And it just really cut to the core because, and I thought, so space is going to be exclusive for male. Of course, everything else was exclusive for male at that time, too. It was just amazing. I even wrote a letter to Time magazine, and I said, what is this? Why are there women on it? And they said, they actually answered the letter, and they said, Time, maybe there will be. But then I can still remember the exact place I was. I was in the lab. We were doing estrogen receptors, and I was sitting there waiting for the reaction to go through, and I was thumbing through Science magazine, and there was an article saying NASA was going to have a new group come and fly the shuttle, and because the laws of the land had changed, they were going to include females. And I thought, wow, that's so neat. And so I went home and I told my husband, I asked my husband, I said, hey, how about if I apply? Would that be okay? And he said, sure, go ahead. And so I did, and about 2 or 3, a few months later, there was another article about the selection, and they said, and we've already got 48 applications in. And I thought, wow, my application's one of them. But, and then life went on from there.
Well, I remember the days that Anna and Shannon are talking about, and I remember I was almost 10 years old, October of 1957, when my father said, come on out in the backyard, I have something important to show you. And we watched Sputnik blink across the sky, and I didn't know what it was, and he explained it was a Russian satellite, the first thing that had gone into orbit. And he said something important to me. He said, you're watching the beginning of a new era. It's called the space age. And I asked him, do you think people will go there someday? Perhaps those of us with a little bit of gray hair remember Buck Rogers on television, where people went into space on rockets, but it was kind of like science fiction. And my daddy said, yes, they probably will. And I said, Daddy, do you think I might be able to go there someday? And he said, yeah, baby, I bet you will be. So, what an inspiration to receive as a young girl from a father who had the confidence in me to encourage me to pursue whatever I needed to pursue to follow that dream. And so that went with me, as Shannon and Anna mentioned, as we watched the space race with Russia continue, how we stopped our school programs in order to watch the launches and to see all the wonderful things. I think one of the things that I was particularly impressed by was the study of human beings in space. I did a science project, I think in the 8th grade, about, there was a Life magazine article of nice pictures about all the dire things that would happen to humans when they went into space. They wouldn't be able to swallow their saliva, they'd go crazy from the isolation. And I thought, that just can't be true, but it's going to be an interesting thing to study. And that's why I got interested in medicine and thought perhaps I would be involved in those studies in the future. And I think that's how it all evolved for me. But, for all the young people who got interested in space back then, I think some of us were very lucky to have come along at the right time for them.